and welcome back everyone to the video series dedicated show on MTV that got the major ick this week. That's right, we're talking about The Challenge Season 41 Vets and New Threats Episode 16. And this is definitively the messiest episode of the season, and I loved every second of it. But before we can get into all the messy details, let's start off where last episode left off, and that was Jake and Anissa being eliminated by Theo and Adrian when they won their 4th elimination of the season. And coming back to the challenge house, Theo and Adrian are happy to be back, but in the upstairs alliance, we have Nany, who is feeling mentally drained over everything that's happened so far over the course of this very, very long season. Now, the final is right around the corner. The season is almost done, but Nany is just feeling like this has been a lot to endure. Now, knowing that the final is very, very close, we have Jeremy talking to Cedric, trying to get some guarantees about where his and Michaela's head is at. Are they willing to keep to their alliance between Jeremy and Aviv, as well as Turbo and Sydney, all while Jeremy and Aviv's name has been floated around the house for weeks at this point. But we're gonna put a pin in that for now as everybody dons their challenge gear, head down to meet up with TJ for this week's daily challenge called Dark Mine. All the pairs will be tethered together as they try to navigate through a dark cave. Once they find their game board, they will have to listen to a booming voice saying numbers and letters. As if this was your grandma's Friday bingo night, the only way they can see is using a box of matches that only have 6 matches at a time. Once they run out of matches, they have to find their way out of the dark cave, go out, grab another box, come back in, and then do it over and over and over again until they decide, like, I'm done, I'm gonna just lock in my answers. The team with the most correct answers in the quickest amount of time will win safety, while the team with the least amount of correct answers with the slowest amount of time will be sent directly to the elimination. This daily challenge was interesting. I like that they used a specific location only really found in Chile to use for this particular challenge. It makes it seem unique to this season. I'll be for real, it gave me Big Brother vibes, as Big Brother loves to do these really dark rooms and voices saying random stuff at them and trying to memorize it and everything. But again, this was creative, this was unique, so overall, I enjoyed this daily challenge. The main struggle for all the teams were how quickly they were using up their matches. Really, matches are great on the first flick. They get really bright initially, and then they start to really dull down, and then they'll flame up rather quickly. Many people said that they were burning their fingertips because they were holding on to the matches for as long as possible, as the flame was eating down the entire matchstick. Sydney and Turbo's communication wasn't the best to start out with. They actually ran out of matches the quickest out of everybody, so they were the first ones that had to leave their station. But this turned out to be a blessing in disguise, because when they returned with their new matches, Sydney heard numbers and letters that they have already heard. So she realized that the tape was repeating numbers, as well as she started to find patterns within the numbers. Of course, we had teams that stumbled in this challenge, some more literally than others. We'll first start off with Will and Olivia, who just did not communicate well. They have not been working well with each other, they don't communicate well, and it showed in this challenge as well. You have Theo and Adrian, where Theo was letting Adrian just take the lead, but he did have a question asking if the voice was saying letters and numbers, and Adrian was like, yeah, of course it is. Were you not listening? Adrian was getting very mad, and Theo was just like, hey, you're doing great. And finally, a huge question mark happened with Michaela and Cedric, where they were running in the dark, and as they were going down a decline in the sand, Michaela rolled her ankle. She said she heard a crack. She instantly fell down to the ground in hopes of not hurting herself any further. Medical staff came over, but she told them to get away. This was a huge point of concern because Michaela, for the rest of the daily challenge, was limping. They had to navigate in and out of the dark multiple times after that. There was concern because this could have been the same ankle that she rolled in the haystack heist. There was a point where Michaela and Cedric were just like, you know what, let's be the first ones out, so in case I have to take longer to walk out of the cave, or we might be tied with somebody else with how many we've gotten right, at least we'll have the time on them. So Michaela and Cedric are the first ones to submit their answers to TJ. Next would be Turbo and Sydney, Will and Olivia, Theo and Adrian, Jeremy and Aviv, and finally, Nany and Justin were the last team to submit their answers. And when the official results came in, Turbo and Sydney got the most correct in the quickest amount of time. They won, they get safety, and unfortunately for Michaela and Cedric, even though they submitted first overall, they had the least amount of correct answers, so they were going directly into this week's elimination. And at this point at the daily challenge, I'm thinking, will we see Michaela leaving the house to go get her ankle checked out? Fortunately, it seems like her ankle is totally fine because we didn't hear anything more about this ankle for the rest of the episode. Now, coming back to the challenge house, there are 6 teams left, and with 2 people from the Upstairs Alliance unable to vote, Yermi and Aviv are thinking that they're going to have a 50-50 chance at a coin flip of staying out of the elimination. However, Michaela, Cedric, Nany, and Justin all have a different plan in mind. When back at the challenge house, Michaela looks at Nany and says, "You know what to do. It's time." Meaning it is time to vote in Yermi and Aviv into the elimination, trying to eliminate a final threat this late in the game. It would be so beneficial for Michaela, Cedric, Nany, and Justin, and really the house in total, because Yermi and Aviv are looked at as a very strong duo. Nany is like, "I'm so glad to hear you say that. This is the perfect time to vote them in." However, the longer it sits with Nany that she's going to have to vote Aviv in, the more it's eating away at her inside that she has to lie to Aviv. So the next day, Nany tells Aviv that, "Hey, I'm going to give you the heads up. We're voting you in." You know, Michaela has already told the Downstairs Alliance of Olivia, Theo, Adrian, and Will that we're voting in Aviv and Yermi. Vote with us, and let's just send them into elimination and not have to worry about it. So Nany sheds a few tears. She feels bad. And Aviv is just like, "Wow, that stinks. I wish we could have gone to a coin flip." But to be honest, Nany wasn't telling Aviv to really look out for Aviv. Nany was telling Aviv that they were voting her in out of her own guilt. If Nany didn't feel bad, she wouldn't have said anything. So Nany wanted to make herself feel better. She wasn't trying to help out Aviv. "Hey, I'm just letting you know, we're thinking about voting you in. Try to do whatever you can to save yourself." No, she was like, "I feel bad. I'm sitting around here moping around, and I want to feel better. I want to feel lighthearted again. So I'm just going to tell you so that way I don't have to lie to you. And I don't want you to do anything about it." And that is definitively evident when we get to the voting ceremony and when TJ asks who wants to stake a claim, and Yermi stands up and wants to claim Olivia, aka go into the claim game against Will. Nany is all mad. She's upset that Yermi is changing everything around. She's crunching numbers, being like, "This is all going to come down to me and possibly put me in jeopardy of being in a coin flip and sending me into elimination." Then she's like, "If I didn't have that moment of weakness, then this would have been an easy vote and everything would have been totally fine." So yes, Nany, if you want to have an easy vote and have everything go to the status quo and blindside one of your alliance members that you've been working with since day one, then yes, you shouldn't have said anything, because really, you said something to Aviv because you wanted to make yourself feel better, not look out for Aviv anyways. I don't want to spend too much time on the claim game because not much was shown of the claim game. It's the exact same game that Justin and Gabe competed in back in episode like 11 or 12. Yermi and Will were running on the side of the mountain. Yermi got to the 3D puzzle first. We leave off on a cliffhanger going back to the voting ceremony where 45 minutes has passed. Everybody is waiting, and Yermi walks in before Will and doesn't say anything to anybody. He just walks in and takes a seat behind Olivia. So now the new pairs are Yermi and Olivia, Will and Aviv. And it kind of made me wonder, did Will really try his hardest to win against Yermi? Because prior to the lock-in, Will seemed to really like the idea of teaming up with Aviv. If he had his way, it sounded like he would have chosen Aviv. We've seen in multiple episodes, pretty much ever since him and Olivia were paired up, that him and Olivia do not work well together. It seems as though that Olivia wanted to stay with Will, viewing him as a security blanket, knowing that Nany would never vote for them. But now she's paired up with Yermi, Will is with Aviv, and now we have to get to the voting ceremony where everything's a question mark. Who are we voting for now? Theo and Adrian are first up to vote. We hear about this secret agreement that Theo made with Nany. Nany swore on her mother that if Theo and Adrian don't vote her and Justin, that Nany and Justin will not vote Theo and Adrian. So Theo, with really only one option, votes for Aviv and Will. And Will wants to vote in Yermi and Olivia. Aviv is thinking, okay, hold on, wait a minute, just 1 second here. Maybe we should think about it. Maybe we should ask people what they want to do. She turns over to Nany, and Nany just instantly shuts down. Will is trying to get confirmation from Nany she won't vote him in, and Nany is just not saying anything. The more Nany stays silent, Will feels like he is being betrayed in this voting ceremony to where he loses it on Nany. Nany and him get into a bitter argument with one another, which leads to them voting for one another. Jeremy and Olivia stand up, ties things up 2-2, voting for Justin and Nany. They do a revote, nothing changes, so we go to a coin flip. It's a 50-50 chance between Will and Aviv. Justin and Nany facing off against Michaela and Cedric, and the coin decided Will and Aviv will be sent to the elimination. This was drama on top of drama in this voting ceremony, from the claim game to the arguments between Will and Nany. I will say that things got really uncomfortable between Will and Nany. Look, I understand where Will feels betrayed, where he's not getting that guarantee from Nany or Justin that they're not saying, we're definitely not gonna vote for you. But that doesn't excuse condescending comments, and some of the comments came off as gross. Why comment about, oh, it's real attractive of you for doing this? Attraction has nothing to do with this voting ceremony. Did Nany make some mistakes leading into this voting ceremony? Yes. She gave Aviv a heads up about where the vote was going. That gave Aviv and Jeremy ample time to come up with a plan, and for them to agree for Jeremy to stake a claim on Olivia to split up their votes. Also, she made this agreement, which I'm still kind of baffled about, but she made this agreement with Theo to not vote against each other, and even going as far as swearing on her mother. Really, all of those decisions came into this microcosm that painted her into a corner, leaving her with really no other options at this point of what to do. And it worked out for Justin and Nany in this moment to get out of going into the elimination against a really strong team in Michaela and Cedric. Speaking of, we go to the arena where we have Aviv, Will, Michaela, and Cedric set to face off in the elimination called Tight Quarters, where each team will have to get into their respective toilets, collect all the puzzle pieces, complete 2 separate puzzles, and if you're the first to complete the puzzles, you will win, stay in the game, while the other pair is eliminated. This is a very interesting setup. I love how big the props are. I love that this is a legit economy bathroom. I think this works great on TV, but in the actual arena, I'm sure that there is very little to work with, and it's just a mystery on what's going on and who will be the first one to leave the bathroom saying, I got it, I got it, I got it. Now, Aviv and Will are at a pretty big disadvantage that they have only been paired up for a couple of hours. They've only done 1 daily challenge together, and now they're going into their first elimination of the season together. And they're gonna have to learn how to communicate and work with each other really quickly. I thought in the beginning that Michaela and Cedric's strategy was better than Will and Aviv's, in the sense that after collecting all the puzzle pieces, Cedric went to do one of the puzzles and Michaela did the other one. When we look over to Will and Aviv's strategy, they were doing one puzzle together. Michaela thought that she was able to get the tanagram done rather quickly, but she was missing 2 pieces. She moved on to help with Cedric with the runway puzzle. Will and Aviv were working on that runway puzzle for so long that they figured out that they were just going to stop that. Aviv was going to go do the tanagram. In the midst of doing that, Michaela and Cedric thought that they had all the answers for both puzzles. They ran out of their bathroom saying, check, 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 check. And finally they said, no, it's not correct. Michaela and Cedric run back into the bathroom. They're looking over everything, and Michaela finds that she is missing 2 pieces in that tangram. She gets stuck wondering where these 2 pieces fit. We move over to Aviv and Will, and Aviv is able to get her tangram. They go back to the runway puzzle, which they have to reset a couple of times. Finally, Michaela gets the tangram, and then boom, Michaela and Cedric are able to get this win. And unfortunately, Aviv and Will were eliminated, as we are down to 5 teams left. It is coming down to the last 1 or 2 episodes before the final, and there are so many good teams left. I do think that Nany could be having a struggle here towards the late end of the game. We can see that she's getting mentally drained. She's getting kind of thrown off after what Theo pulled at the voting ceremony with trying to pit her against Turbo and trying to save Turbo, and now this voting ceremony, losing Will, losing Aviv, and lying to one of your allies this late in the game. It is going to be a struggle, as everybody is going to try to fight to survive heading into the final, which is really very close. It is danger close, as TJ would say. But that is it for this week's episode. What did you think about this episode? Let me know down in the comment section below. What did you think about the daily challenge? What did you think about the elimination? What do you think about Nany telling Aviv and then being all upset that Aviv and Jeremy were gonna do something? I did love that Aviv did her acting courses of being like, I didn't know he was gonna do this. He just told me he was gonna do it. And then when you see the flashback, Jeremy is like, should I do it? And Aviv's like, yeah, we got nothing to lose. And they're laughing about staking a claim. I loved that moment. And I love that Aviv tried. You know, I love that Jeremy and Aviv tried after hearing that they were 100% going in. Give yourself a chance. Shake things up. I loved it. It was such a dramatic filled episode. It was the messiest episode. But what did you think about it? Let me know anything and everything you felt about this episode down in the comment section below. I now want to give a special shout out thank you to everyone who supports me over at patreon.com/angelcakevids. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your generosity. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And thank you to everyone who's watching this video up to this point. I'll be back really soon with more Challenge 41 content, more challenge content, more content in general. But until then, peace.